Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I just wanted to go over what it is, and what it means and what it is that judges can do if in fact they are ignored continuously, and especially right now with the type of situation we're in with Donald Trump's administration and him and Elon Musk and what they can do. Why? Because it matters. Let's get into the video. This article is by CNN or amp.cnn. The article is by Devane Cole and John Fritz from CNN. This article came out, or was updated today, and it came out today. It was updated at 9:07 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the article reads, CNN, recent court orders slowing down or indefinitely blocking President Donald Trump's policy bids have raised the specter that the executive branch might openly flout the federal judiciary and prompted questions about how judges would respond. Any decision by the administration not to defy federal courts would immediately implicate profound constitutional questions about separation of powers that have kept each branch of the government in check for centuries. That's in large part because it would test the power of courts to enforce rulings that are supposed to be the final word. Legal experts say there are few options to force compliance with its pronouncements. Judges could hold an agency or official in civil or criminal contempt, but that's about it. Fears that the Trump administration might deliberately break into a pattern of not following judicial rulings with which it disagrees, amplified this week when a federal judge in Rhode Island for a second time told the Trump administration that it can't, my editorial edition, cut off grant and loan payments after Democratic-led states complained that the administration wasn't obeying the judge's previous court order. A day earlier, Vice President J.D. Vance also created a storm of criticism when he questioned in a post on X whether courts can block any of Trump's agenda, quote, Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power, end quote, he wrote in part. I will correct that right now. That is false, J.D. Vance. You are completely wrong. You're completely wrong. And here's why I say that. Because what Donald Trump is doing in his second term is blatantly unconstitutional and is flat out illegal. Hence, if they really wanted to, they could have him arrested for doing this probably. Hint, I said probably. Not that they could have him arrested. If a judge wants him arrested, they could go to the federal marshal's office and have them put a warrant out for his arrest. Because what Donald Trump is doing is illegal. And they have full discretion to enforce that. So, I suggest you learn what is legal and what is not illegal. Continuing with the article. To be sure, such talk at the moment is just that, talk. And at the moment, the Justice Department has taken the usual approach of appealing to a higher court on preliminary injunctions that have blocked various executive actions. Asked at the White House on Tuesday whether he'll comply with court rulings, Trump has said that he will, end quote, or begin quote, he says, I always abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he's slowed down the momentum, and it gives corrupt people more time to cover the books, end quote, he says, or Trump says, quote, so yeah, the answer is I always abide by the courts. Always abide by them, he said, and we'll apply or appeal, but appeals take a long time, end quote. And you know, Donald Trump, you know that you'll never win, so you should just let it be. Because what you're doing is blatantly unconstitutional, and many legal scholars will agree and say that you're blatantly illegal in what you're doing. Continuing with the article. The most likely response by a court if the administration were to defy or would be to hold. The most likely response by a court if the administration were to defy its edict would be to hold the agency acting in defiance of an order or ruling in civil court in civil contempt, which would allow a judge to levy fines on the government for its non-compliance, experts told CNN. Which, yet again, Donald Trump, you're lying. You're not whatsoever complying with the court order, especially the one from Judge McConnell. You're not complying, so hence, that is me fact-checking you right there. You better do this or you're just gonna be bankrupt pretty much by the time this illegal presidency is over. Quote, so you find whoever the relevant defendant is, whether it's Secretary of the Treasury or some other official, and the fines escalate, semicolon, as the non-compliance continues, semicolon, end quote. Michael Dorff, who is a constitutional law professor at Cornell Law School, said, but the issue with that, Dorff added, is that the agency or official might also ignore the imposed fines. Quote, if they've been willing to defy the order in the first place, they might be willing to defy the sanctions order, end quote, he said. Other format sanctions by a court, though grounded in a deep history, also come with a host of potential problems when applied to the executive branch. Should a judge decide to pursue criminal contempt, for instance, it would need to be initiated by the Justice Department, meaning it's highly unlikely given the president's control over that department. The U.S. Marshals Service, which enforces federal court orders, is also part of the Department of Justice. Yeah, but that is true. But as a 30-year prosecutor that I am in instant communications with in his videos, he said one of his previous videos had said, or he says, that the U.S. federal marshals have an obligation by federal law to enforce whatever the federal courts tell them to do. So if Donald Trump tells them to do one thing and the federal courts tell them to do another, they have to go by what the federal courts tell them. Continuing with the article. Quote, judges are very leery of using that, and maybe appropriately so, because it's such a hammer. The threat of sending somebody to jail is sort of a last resort, end quote, said Carl Tobias, who is a constitutional law professor at the University of Richmond School of Law. Judges holding government entities or officials in contempt is not unheard of. In 2021, U.S. Judge Royce Lamberth in Washington, D.C. held the city's jail in civil contempt, but did not impose any sanctions. The judge, and an appointee of former President Ronald Reagan, instead referred the jail to the Justice Department of potential civil rights violations after it failed to get treatment for a U.S. Capitol rioter who needed surgery. And presidents not complying with court orders while novel is also not unprecedented. Then President Richard Nixon famously defied a court order to turn over White House tape recordings during the Watergate investigation. He ultimately did, but only after the Supreme Court ruled that he needed to hand them in. Punishment could be in political or not legal. David Cole, who is a Georgetown law professor who has repeatedly argued cases before the Supreme Court on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union, predicted that the most likely penalty a president would face for defying a court order would be political, not legal. Quote, the response, end quote, Cole predicted, quote, would be to punish the Republican Party, end quote. But Cole noted that during Trump's first term, the White House frequently lost major legal disputes, complained loudly about the judge who issued them, and then did what every previous administration has done after losing appeal, despite, quote, a lot of norm-breaking, end quote. Cole said he believed people are overreading Vance's post on X and other past statements. Quote, if the president were to defy an order, it would cause a political firestorm, end quote, Cole said, quote, and he knows that, and he's therefore very unlikely to do it. Yeah, but you see, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has repeatedly defied all of the judges' court orders. So we know he's all talk. We know Donald Trump is all talk and no game, pretty much. Continuing with the article. Dorff said that the difference between how the Trump administration responded to adverse court rulings during the first term and now is, quote, the complete acquiescence of congressional Republicans to Trump, end quote. The support, he said, forecloses the possibility that Congress might use its impeachment power to punish Trump or others for potential noncompliance with a court order. Some Republicans this week have defended the role of the federal judiciary or pushed back on the idea that the White House might defy rulings, hamstringing Trump's agenda. Among them is Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, who is a Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee, who said that he supports the, quote, legitimacy of the federal judiciary, end quote, and the judiciary process. Quote, I've disagreed with opinions before, end quote, he said, begin quote, that's why God made courts of appeal. That's why God made the U.S. Supreme Court. CNN's Caitlin Polantz contributed to this report. Well, everybody, that is going to conclude it for today's video. If you've enjoyed this, breaking legal update, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. We just hit our 85th subscriber, which means we are exactly 5 away from being close to reaching our goal of 90 subscribers for the channel. Then we have other subscriber goals to reach. And then lastly, before I close out today's video, if you guys haven't already, please do feel free to follow me on my Instagram, Threads, as well as God, what's the third one? Oh, Snapchat. There you guys can be updated instantly on when I posted a brand new video on the channel. Another way you can get notified is if you press the bell icon right next to the subscribe button, and click all instead of personal or some of the options. When you click the bell icon, I'd highly recommend you guys press the all icon or option when you go to select your option for the bell. That way you never miss a major breaking legal update. I will have links down below so that way you guys don't have to go searching for my Instagram, Threads, or Snapchat below. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will talk to you guys in the next legal breaking update.